again. We're going to continue with explorations of the corpus of early Arabic sources for West African history, edited by Left Zion and Hopkins, of course. Today we're going to look at the brief passage of Al-Bakri on the kingdom of Kanem. Al-Bakri, of course, was the 11th century Andalusian geographer who wrote one of the most detailed accounts of the kingdom of Ghana and the Western Sudan, quote unquote. Although much of his information was drawn on 10th century sources, and he himself never traveled to West Africa, he actually wrote, in some cases, very detailed and accurate accounts of the various peoples in Western Africa, which raises the even more interesting question of why he seemed to say so little about Kanem. Let's begin with a brief passage. Zawila lies between the Maghreb and the Qibla from Atrabulus. From there, slaves are exported to Ifriqiya and other neighboring regions. They are bought for short pieces of red cloth. Between Zawila and the region of the Kanem is 40 stages. The Kanemis live beyond the desert of Zawila, and scarcely anyone reaches them. They are pagan Sudan. Some assert that there is a people there descended from the Banu Umayyah, who found their way there during their persecution by the Abbasids. They still preserve the dress and customs of the Arabs. So we have to stop and consider, why is it that Al-Bakri, who just in this passage alone alludes to the slave trade across the Sahara from places like Kanem, why he seems to have nothing to say about Kanem? It's odd, considering that some of the earliest Arabic sources of sub-Saharan West African peoples allude to Kanem and Zagawa people as early as the 9th century, possibly even earlier in the 8th century, although that remains to be verified. So why is it that Al-Bakri, writing from Al-Andalus, had so little to say about Kanem? Could it be due to the fact that people in Muslim Andalusia didn't quite have direct trade ties to Kanem, more so to the lands further west, along the Senegal River and the Niger? That's one possible reason. But either way, it's interesting that Al-Bakri repeats the story of Umayyad refugees fleeing to Kanem. Such a story appears in other sources, and one begins to wonder if this story may have influenced the legendary claim among the Safua dynasty that they are descendants of an ancient Yemeni king. Perhaps these Umayyad refugees, who allegedly preserved their dress and customs, perhaps they were influencing the Zagawa early Kanembu peoples in terms of Arab or Arabian folklore and oral traditions? Either way, it's still an interesting question of why exactly Al-Bakri has so little to say about Kanem, particularly when Kanem itself seems to have been well known, or at least through the slave trade, so-called Zagawa people were well known to North African and Mediterranean authors and Middle Eastern sources. We'll explore this issue again in the future. Thank you.